Let me outline the critical lessons of this second element of Abraham's faith for us today. These are the take-home lessons and wisdom in the fact that Abraham was not weak in faith. He kept his faith strong. He kept his faith able to produce the miraculous outcome. He kept his faith agile. He was not frail. He was not powerless. He didn't consider all other options. The only option he has was to keep his focus and attention on God and on the promises of God. Number one, when you concentrate your attention on the physical realities of life, you will lose your focus on God and you will lose your focus on His promise. And your faith will be weak or even dead. So do not concentrate or focus or give your attention to the physical realities around you. All you will have in the physical realities will be hopelessness, will be impossibility. That shouldn't be your focus. Your focus in the midst of the hopelessness of the condition of life is the promise of God, is the power of God, is the faithfulness of God. Number two, it is a grievous error to evaluate God's faithfulness and commitment to His promise based on the physical circumstances of life. That's a grievous error. God does not need the accuracy of physical circumstances to validate the correctness of His promise. Many people believe that it is when physical circumstances begin to change that they cannot believe God, that God is serious about what He said He will do. You don't need the physical circumstances to change before you start to believe God, because God does not need the physical circumstances of life to validate the correctness or the accuracy of His promise. Number three, the promise of God is not under the control of physical realities. Rather, it is the physical realities that are under the control of the promise of God. Do not forget that. The promise of God is not determined or controlled by the physical realities of life. It is the physical realities of life that is under the control of the promise of God. Number four, do not allow the devil to confuse your focus and distract your attention when your physical circumstances do not seem to align with the promise of God. Most people, the moment their physical circumstances cannot align with the promise of God, they become confused, they become distracted. This is always a weapon by the devil to shift their focus of God. Do not allow it. Keep your focus on the promise of God, irrespective or regardless of the nature of the circumstances around you. And number five, it is a temporary situation that will not last. What I mean is this: your physical condition, your physical circumstances, as hopeless as it may be, is a temporary situation that will not last. The promises of God will outlive the physical circumstances. The promises of God will swallow the physical circumstances. The promises of God will change the physical circumstances. So the physical circumstances, unpredictable, unpalatable, having no alignment with the promise of God, as it were, is a temporary situation that will not last. Your faith in God has the spiritual capacity to adjust the physical circumstances of life until it is completely aligned with the promise of God. As you keep your faith in God strong, steady, and powerful, the physical circumstances of life begins to adjust to the reality of God's promise. It is your faith that has the capacity to provoke the power of God to bring the physical circumstances of life in full alignment and obedience to the promise of God. Brethren, let me emphasize as I conclude this broadcast that God is still the same today. What He did for Abraham, He will do for you today if you will trust Him like Abraham did, regardless of the hopelessness of your current condition. Especially as you ensure that just like Abraham was not weak in faith, you must not be weak in faith. You must be strong in faith. You must keep your faith strong. You must keep your faith agile, and healthy. Keep your focus on God.